Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Have you read a book that makes you want to shout the title from a rooftop? If you haven't, then here is that book. The Evolution of Constitutional Law, Public Law and Government by retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. Renowned Kenyan jurist and panelist Professor PLO Lumumba and many other amazing speakers will grace the event. Do not miss the book launch on March 26, 2021, 2 p.m. at Imperial Royal Hotel. The ticket comes with a book. All this at just 200,000 shillings. Call 0702 9000 76 or 0783 04 7785 to get the book or follow up on the launch. This event is organized by Alternative Digitalk in partnership with retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Digitalk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugendo maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop and smart TVs as we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Dig Talk.
Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Have you read a book that makes you want to shout the title from a rooftop? If you haven't, then here is that book. The Evolution of Constitutional Law, Public Law and Government by retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. Renowned Kenyan jurist and panelist Professor PLO Lumumba and many other amazing speakers will grace the event. Do not miss the book launch on March 26, 2021, 2 p.m. at Imperial Royal Hotel. The ticket comes with a book. All this at just 200,000 shillings. Call 0702 9000 76 or 0783 04 7785 to get the book or follow up on the launch. This event is organized by Alternative Digitalk in partnership with retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. with our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
We President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 weyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the alternative digital etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugende mu maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop, and smart TVs. As we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Dig Talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
It's always a pleasure being at Professor Kanyehamba's home every last Friday of a month. He doesn't want to call him an old man, and his
I said
uncle,
you call me uncle.
Uncle Kanye. So Uncle Kanye. So Uncle Kanye is home. The beauty today is that I am amidst two professors. By the way, if a PhD was if PhD was just getting through air, I think I would also be a PhD holder, just like them. But that aside, I have two PhD holders, two professors. I am Methodist Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. I am also next to Professor PLO Lumumba, the African jurist. I want to ask Professor PLO Lumumba to just say hello to the viewers of the Alternative Dig Talk. This is the Mighty Drive Show. It happens from Monday to Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Please say hello to our viewers, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me say that I'm very glad to be here to pay homage to a man who is a legal colossus, and it humbles one to be at his home and in his presence. You younger generation may not know, but this is one of the greatest legal minds that Africa has ever produced. I'm humbled.
Humbled indeed. Prof. Yeah, this is every Friday, the last Friday of the
Good
month.
morning, Professor. You are very, very kind, and I feel very embarrassed by those very flowery comments. Thank you very much. We are very, very honored to have you here. And I watched you on TV last night. You were on that program on NBS. You were absolutely brilliant. And many people, when they heard you were going to participate in that program, I think they switched on TV, and many of them didn't sleep. I stayed here watching the show, and I thought that as a professor, you scored the highest marks. I couldn't quote you. Having said that, I was very, very pleased that when we contacted you, you agreed to come and join us, not only for last night's show, but even this morning's discussion, and this afternoon, the launching of my book, Constitutional Law, Public Law and the Government, which is an expanded version of the one I published. Maybe, were you born then or
I
were you a boy?
Yeah, I was, but
It came out in 1975.
And I have read it. I think we read it at the university.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Yes. When you read the preface to the current one, Justice Engonda Tende, who is Justice of the Court of Appeal / Constitutional Law of Uganda, he said it came out after he had just finished his undergraduate, and he regrets that that book was not available
Yes.
at the time because it would have helped him in his studies. But he's given a very flowery preface to it, and I think people will be attracted. It's written in ordinary language, which everybody can understand. So it is intended for general reading. Prof, you were telling me this morning that you read it, presumably last night, read part of it, and you were pleased to find out where the name Uganda came from, and the Buganda, because I hint on that in the book. So, good morning, viewers. Thank you.
So humbled, Prof. Again, I want to go so quickly to Prof. PLO Lumumba, and like we're discussing off record yesterday, that questions keep coming in our inbox. Like, no, ask this Prof about ABC and Z. Prof, want to discuss about right from you. I mean, yeah, to hear from you. One asked, you have been in this whole, we cannot call it a mess, but an African setting, like there is no stability in this whole region, and this has been seen. I mean, even when there are those leaders that people have had hopes in, and one asks, what do you think is the African problem that it never gets settled right away from independence up to now?
Let me start by saying that the post-colonial African state is an artificial construct. And for that very reason, when we regained our independence, or when the colonialists left, it was never their intention that this country should be stable and survive. You must start from that premise. And the very manner in which they arbitrarily carved out the boundaries was designed, and Professor Kanyeihamba speaks about it in his book when he says, not in so many words, that take for example Uganda. You find the Luos in Kenya, the Luos in Uganda, the Luos in Sudan, the Luos in different parts, the Banyala, the same thing. And you go to Tanzania or any other country, Tigray in Ethiopia, they are in Eritrea, the Somalis are in Somalia, they are in Kenya, they are in Ethiopia. With that kind of structure and architecture, you can see that the modern, if you may, African state was designed to fail. And my own view is that we have done a pretty good job in the midst of this, that we have retained relative stability in itself is something that we don't mention. Look at your typical European nation. They are nation states, and where they are not, they struggle. Look at the United Kingdom with the English, the Welsh, and the Irish, and the Scottish. They have had problems. If you go to countries such as Sweden, they are a nation state. If you go to Finland, a nation state. And you go to Denmark, a nation state. You go to Italy, a nation state. You go to Portugal, a nation state. You go to Spain, where there are several ethnicities. They have had civil wars. And the problem, therefore, is that we are nations struggling to be states. And therefore, the contest for power can be very vicious. The second thing is that quite a number of individuals who have had the honor and privilege of serving their countries have not done very well. They have not left when they ought to have left. They have used the position that they occupy for personal benefit rather than the benefit of the society. But that is not to say that there have been countries where a lot of good work has been done. Tanzania is a country that has over 136 nations, and through the adroit and selfless governance of Mwalimu Nyerere, we can say that there is something good that happened in that country. You can mention countries such as Botswana, You can even, in the first 10 years of President Museveni's administration, I think the NRM did a pretty good job. So in a nutshell, our problem is simply and squarely one of leadership that does not recognize that when you want to preside over a multi-nation state, your governance ought to be selfless, and it ought to be designed in a manner that it is meant to weld the people and not to divide them.
Words of Professor PLO Lumumba on the Mighty Drive Show. We are streaming live on our social media page. That's the Alternative Uganda social media page, and also on our YouTube channel, Alternative Uganda, and Twitter as well. We are in Professor George Wilson Kanyehamba's home. I had a question for you, but I think let me just give it to you right now. You have talked over the first 10 years of Mr. Museveni as president then, that he was doing he had done a lot of work. In your view, how long should one stay or live?
Really, there is extant evidence now
Yes.
that after 10 years you begin to go down, you begin to go south. I believe that one deserves, in fact, I now dare say that in order to avoid this term limit business in many African countries, let us say that a leader is elected for a single term of 7 years. Of 7 years.
7 years.
If you can't achieve it in 7 years, you can't achieve it. So that is known from the word go. You'll serve for a maximum of 7 years, and it is a single term. And then you hand over the baton. History has demonstrated, and I think it is the Baganda who say, and I agree with them, and I've said it before, that no matter how good a dancer you are, you must leave the dance floor.
Words of Professor PLO Lumumba. On my right is Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. Prof,
Yes,
do you concur with your with your fellow prof that someone should stay?
I largely concur with what my colleague has said. I differ differently on term limits. I think 7 years is too short, and that's why we studied it. I was a member of the Constituent Assembly, but Justice Ben Odochi had traveled over the world, gathered views from other countries, America, UK, South Africa, Ghana, and he compiled a wonderful report, which was our working document in CA. When we went to CA, they formed a committee called the Legal and Drafting Committee, consisting of 15 lawyers. Some of them were eminent. People like Professor Nabudere was a member of our committee. Honorable Dr. Matembe was part of it. Many former chief magistrates had stood for Constituent Assembly, and they came to a board. We debated. We were supposed to have finished the Constitution in 6 months. It took us over a year of intensive debate, exchange of views, and viewing evidence from everywhere. And we came to the conclusion that 10 years was the maximum that any individual president needed to have done an impact on the country. So 1 term of 7 years is too short. That's why I disagree with the professor. But 10 years, we did research on all countries, is ideal. Because after 10 years, and I wanted to quote Professor Joe Oroka of Makerere University, who said, after 10 years, the returns started diminishing from one individual. After 15 years, the leader becomes a liability to the country. Those are the words Professor Roca, and I agree. But 10 years. That's why I'm campaigning very vigorously with everybody that we go back to the 1995 Constitution, because even Museveni said it is the best Ugandans have ever made.
Thanks, Prof. Kanyeihamba. Do you suggest that now Mr. Museveni is a liability to our country?
He is, definitely.
He's a liability.
And he knows it. You see, Museveni is a very intelligent man. When he sees the results of the presidential elections in 2021, he lost Uganda. All his MPs, in what he used to call the political marker of the whale, they were all defeated. Then elsewhere, he wouldn't have won, except he spent a lot of money bribing agents and the voters themselves. I can tell you that one of my relatives who was very poor has now built a house with Mabati because of the
Campaigns, recent campaigns.
the money campaign. A young lady who was a teacher and she decided to be an agent of the movement. During this last election, she was given 5 million, which I never even used to save when I was a judge. If you remember, during the election, we ran short of money. The NRM said they spent about 14 billion
To special campaign.
on agents. They bought cars for him to win back Rukunjiri. He bought cars for leaders there of the NRM. He gave them facilitations in every department of development. And that's how he won. But secondly, he even said recently, rigging. You are the president, you appointed members of the Electoral Commission, the police worked for you and they wanted him to win again, the army. How do they then allow Shagulanyi, as Museveni said recently, that he carried out massive rigging of the election when you are in charge? That alone shows that he's totally out of touch with reality. And I served him. He was brilliant in the first term.
What do you mean when you say he was? Has the brilliance died?
He died long time ago. About 10 years ago.
That's when he's
When he's already a spent force. I went to UK as a judge. I'd been Minister of Justice and Attorney General. Even initially, remember, I was Minister of Commerce. So I went there. I had been writing in my land review monitor, Sunday monitor, that the Museveni of 1986 had changed dramatically into an authoritarian, intolerant leader. So they asked me, they said, are you really saying that the man you served, the man where you left your good job as a university don in the UK, there are very few Africans who are dons in Europe, and you went to serve him, you mean that he's no longer the same? I said, no. And he knows. So he said, what do you think the Museveni of 1986 would do if he met the Museveni of today? That's 10 years ago. I said they would shoot each other on sight. They wouldn't recognize one another. Because the Museveni of 1986 was principled, had integrity. When he addressed the AU at Addis Ababa, he said the problems with African leaders, they overstay in power. It seems as if he was describing himself. So, definitely, Museveni is now an embarrassment to many of us who still support him for the work he did, and he's become a liability to the nation of Uganda.
Great. What is your Professor, retired Justice George Wilson Kanyeihamba? I want to go back to you, Professor PLO Lumumba. The beauty is that I'm amidst two professors of law. These aren't professors of biology or physics. They are professors of law. Let's go constitutionalism now. Prof, why don't African constitutions work?
You know, Professor Kanyeihamba has written extensively about this, and I remember my own teacher, whom he'll remember, Professor H.W. Okothogendo, in 1972 wrote a brilliant article, Constitutions Without Constitutionalism. Subsequently, Yash Guy, in fact a little earlier, Yash Guy, with whom I served when we were doing the Constitution of Kenya review, said that Africa has become a graveyard of beautiful constitutions which are honored in breach. And I think that part of the problem is that we have no fidelity to the letter and spirit of the Constitution. And in many African countries, you see that the document, which should ideally be a contract between the governors and the governed, is abused for very short-term political interests. You've seen it in a number of countries. You've seen this wave, for example, that the good professor has talked about, that when there was enlightenment after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, you see this raft of constitutions is in Ethiopia, is in Kenya, is in Uganda, is in Nigeria, is in Ghana, and quite a number of countries where it is recognized that term limit is a good thing. It is recognized that age limit is a good thing. And everybody agrees. Then as the leaders get into the inner sanctums of power and the things that come with it, they now see constitutions as a roadblock to their very short-term political interest. And because of their ability to mobilize their ethnicities or religion, they then recruit and weaponize the population. And they use the money that they have to ensure that the Constitution does not work. So you have the black letter prescriptions of the Constitution, which are then bastardized in application. And I think that that is true of quite a number of African countries, that leaders really stand in the way of the fuller realization of the Constitution, so that the document, the constitutions in Africa are innocent. Those who are guilty are the leaders who manipulate them, and in certain cases they even have judiciaries which are compliant, and therefore they give a veneer of legality to what is essentially illegal. That is the African problem. I'll conclude by telling you this. Look at the Kenyan Constitution. The Kenyan Constitution of 1963 is put in place. Within 1 year, they have amended the Constitution. Between 1963 and 1969, the Constitution has been amended so many times that is reorganized and reissued. We give ourselves a constitution in 2010. As I speak to you now, there is an attempt to overhaul the entire document without giving it the opportunity to settle. And that, compare that with the Swiss Constitution or the American Constitution, which has been there and has been amended. The American Constitution has not been amended more than 27 times and is over 200 years old. That is our problem. Once again, as the great Nigerian author once said in 1983, the problem of Africa is simply and squarely one of leadership. Dishonest, selfish, and visionless leadership. Mostly. Exceptions to the rule exist.
Could I add
True.
what Professor has said, giving Uganda as an example? When we made the 1995 Constitution, after protracted negotiations and traveling abroad for 6 years by the Constitutional Commission headed by Justice Ben Odochi, we divided the country into much smaller
Units, constituencies, and
units to debate the Constitution. The army was on our side. The army said that they were happy we were creating smaller units so that the whole country could participate in the making of the Constitution. I have told you, when we promulgated it, Museveni was our guest. Parliament didn't make it. It was made by the people. That's why the slogan of Honorable Shaburanyi, otherwise known as Bobe Wine, is very attractive. People's power. Article 1 of the Constitution says power belongs to the people of Uganda. And they will exercise that power through elections, voting, or referenda. But when Museveni wanted to stay on, he persuaded the people, and it is on record, give me one more term, and I will retire. I haven't finished my program. The problem with African dictators, they always have an excuse. He has been in power for 34 years, over 34 years. But if you ask him, he said he has not finished his program. When will he ever finish his program? Now, having said that, they amended the Constitution in 2005. Cabinet was divided. Those who opposed were led by none other than my former good friend, Elia Kategaya, who was first Deputy Prime Minister, Bidandi Sabi, who was the leader really of radicals in the cabinet. He's still alive. And Matembe, the woman, vibrant spokesperson. So they refused to go along for amending the Constitution. What did Museveni do? He sacked them all.
What would you do?
Amanya Mushega, we were sacked. Then they amended it again. When we were about to reach new elections, President Museveni very, very cunningly said, let us remove term limits. Let me be short, because I would like our guest, Professor, to talk more and more than me, because you are with me here. Now, when he, why I am happy, President Chief Justice, Alfonso Doro Owinye, has said two things. One, that Uganda, we made a mistake to remove term limits. He's the current chairman. He has said, and I hope you will ask me about Article 104 before we go, because that's where he's wrong. He said to the Shagulanyi that if Shagulanyi brings credible evidence, he will find for him. But it is not for Shagulanyi. It is for the court.
Correct.
The onus of proving or showing that somebody was validly elected or was not, or the election was free and fair, is incumbent on the Supreme Court.
We'll come on.
The petition and their witnesses are only giving them evidence.
We'll come on to that in regards to Article 104 of the Uganda Constitution. I want to ask, Prof, I want to come back to you, sir, in regards to your time, as definitely as an experienced historian and also a lawyer, some people say, I want to hear from the horse's mouth, that your former president, now the late Kenyatta, that used to cane his cabinet ministers just to shape them because they hadn't known about leadership. How true is that? Is it for some reason that Kenya is slightly ahead of us, slightly when it comes to leadership, or something that he used? I repeat, we have heard that he used to cane his cabinet ministers due to their incompetence or something. So,
of course.
how true is that?
Of course, there are many things that people would say, but remember, and I think one of my teachers and a former judge of the Supreme Court, J.B. Ojwang, has written a very erudite PhD thesis about power in Africa. And he says that the first generation African leaders had what he called charisma. And that charisma allowed them to extend the contours of power a little bit more widely. And because of age, there were certain things that he could do which a younger leader could not do. He could rebuke his younger cabinet ministers. He would possibly, in a fit of anger, cane a few of them. At least there is anecdotal evidence to that regard. And there is a sense in which there was order and discipline. But remember also, when President Kenyatta was the president, we were riding on the crest of the positive nationalism of having regained independence. So everybody tended to pull in the right direction across the country. Whether they were wrong or not is another debate. But the ideological position that they took, take for example Kenya Session of Paper number 10, properly informed. Take for example Ujamaa, properly informed. Some may have a quarrel with the common man's charter of Apollo Milton Obote, but informed by some ideological underpinnings, the humanism of Kenneth David Kaunda. So there is a sense in which you could see some genuine efforts. You could see that in Kwame Nkrumah, Ahmed Sekou Toure, Ahmed Ben Bella. One can go around the continent and see that. The essence of that is that there was discipline. The essence of that was that people were moving in the right direction. We did lose that even in the case of Kenyatta only a few years. In 1966, Kenyatta had been captured by an ethnic cabal and therefore was governing the country in a manner that was not in the general benefit of the country, but for this small ethnic cabal. That is where we lose it. That is where many African leaders lose it. And it is attributable, as we have already said, that when you stay in power for too long, you begin to lose what the French call the je ne sais quoi. You lose the thing, the essence of why you are in power at all. And that is evident in a number of African countries. In a nutshell, I'm saying, discipline is at the very center of the ability to govern effectively. Paul Kagame is demonstrating that. The late John Joseph Pombe Magufuli demonstrated that discipline. We are young nations.
Prof,
Can I just to amplify what the professor has said? I want to give you a very small instance. When Museveni took power, when I initially was Minister of Commerce, he appointed me Minister of Commerce. And when we were in cabinet, one minister said, I was talking to the First Lady. When Museveni shot up, said, my wife is not First Lady. Has he got any qualities which other women don't have? If she ever achieved the right of governance in her own right, she can be called that. But we are not Americans to call presidents' wives First Lady.
Correct.
I have a letter here, so she can't deny. Then people, in order to humor her, First Lady, she's not a Michelle of America.
Yeah.
And because they say so, I think she enjoys it now. Yes. And if you don't call her First Lady, she gets upset. But I had a letter signed by her when I was the Chancellor of Kampala International University. She was our guest of honor. And I gave a speech And they said, Honorable Janet Museveni. And I said, the reason I don't call her First Lady is that implies that everything she's done is because she's the wife of the president. But I call her Honorable because she was elected even against her own husband, and she's Minister of Education. Now, today's papers, especially, I want to ask the editors of New Vision and Monitor. When you say the First Lady said this, the First Lady was seen talking about the university. Is she talking as the wife of the president or as the Minister of Education?
Correct.
Very confusing. The First Lady, the First Lady. No, she's the Minister of Education. And that's why when I called her Honorable Jenny, she sent me a note. And should people deny it, the editors of Red Paper, whatever, you tell them and you show that later. She said, Professor, you are my friend. You are the only one who has recognized me in my own right as a minister and the Janet who can do things by her own head, not through the pants of my husband. First lady, first lady, first lady.
Okay, what the two professors and these are PhD holders of law. It's fun here and also educative. It's the Mighty Drive show. I have his 81 years and he's going to be 82 years. I am, what a blessing to be a minister.
In August the 11th.
In August 11th.
If you sent me presents, August the 11th is my birthday. And
you
I will come off the car.
You had better build a big crowd.
As we speak, today at 2, he will be launching his 31st book. You can imagine, 31st book. 31st book, and young people out there, you who haven't even written, not even a will, not even a paragraph, guys, at least write a will, at least write a will, maybe half a page. I mean, 31 books here on my right, Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba, and we have young people. The best you can do is being in sports betting and at least write at least a will, okay, at least a will, and you'll be with some few things, whether it's a pair of, so at least write something. Back to Professor PLO Lumumba. What can Africans do to ensure that their constitutions work? Save for simply having them as best documents, what should Africans do for the constitutions to work?
You know, there is a combination of things that must happen. You must have a population that has civic awareness and is prepared to protect their territory, because democracy, the thing we call democracy, requires eternal vigilance of the population. We must also have leadership that has fidelity to the Constitution and recognizes that leadership is a position of honor and privilege. We must have an architecture of government that recognizes that there is an executive which is under the check of the legislature, and the legislature must recognize that they speak for and on behalf of the people, and that is their duty to check the legislature. You must have a judiciary whose members know that they are the guardians of the Constitution, and that when the Constitution is abused and the citizens seek their intervention, they must interpret the law in a manner that protects that Constitution. It is that combination that will ensure that we have a constitutional dispensation that works and thrives, that is in the best interest of the country.
Thank you, Prof. Pierre Lumumba. I want to come back to you. This is a question that has been so much asked, Prof. And history has it that you are one of the best draftsmen Uganda has ever had. It's on record. But also, critics come back to you and say, Prof. Kanyeihamba lied to us because they didn't entrench, especially term limits. And this is one of the questions that always gets your wires off. Please, tell the world, why did you entrench the term limit? Why did you entrench the age limit? It's one of those disturbing questions every now and again. Prof. Kanyeihamba, that you are lying to the world, you shouldn't blame Museveni and his people, but blame yourself for not having entrenched term limits and the age limits. There you go.
First of all, that accusation is false and it is based on fiction. First of all, we have already said at the beginning that the Constituent Assembly was much bigger than the Parliament. Almost every county, the religions were represented. The soldiers, the disabled, the youth, the workers. Then each small constituency had represented there. I already told you that on the small committee, the legal and drafting committee, we were 15 lawyers, including Nabudere and the others I mentioned. We were Nabudere. So, first of all, any reasonable Uganda would say, Kanyeihamba did not make the constitution alone. Unless I was a dictator and they said, this is what you have. I am the constitutional maker. You Katulebe, accept this.
You were a senior counsel, that's why you were interested as one of the, draftsmen. So
no,
perhaps,
it is true that whatever I didn't want, we debated it, and often they would listen to me. Not because I was Kanyeihamba, but they thought I was knowledgeable. Yes, about what we are doing. But let me ask that gentleman, and there is another supporter of the movement, Tamale Mirungi.
Even said it's coming in particular today.
I hope you come today and ask me the same question. We entrenched term 10 years no more. We were very careful that the president should not go more than 10 years. We said when you are 75, by the way, 75 was, I will tell you, smuggled in. We had to say also 70 like judges of Supreme Court. But they smuggled it in.
And added 5 years.
Than 75. Ask Mirundi, are those safeguards still there? Since he removed them, term limits, age limit, we even said Parliament shall never touch traditional monarchs and so on. They changed it. If you read my book, The Blessings and the Joy of Who You Are, I said the traditional rulers bill is definitely unconstitutional. It is there as a law. So,
you did your best as a draftsman?
No. I did what Mirundi asked for. I put there term limits. When you read my book, The Constitutional and the Political History of Uganda, from 1894, that's when we were declared the protective, to the present. If you read that, I said when we finish the 1995 Constitution, it subjected the presidency to the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the president is under it. Since then, he said, he's no servant of anybody. How can a president of a democracy say, I am not a servant of anybody? But when we were electing him, and some of us who sacrificed fought for him, I may not have gone to well in the bush, but I was in Europe, in separatist bush. I was in bush, collecting guns, money.
Prof, for you, you were in the UK flats, not in the bush.
It's shepherd's bush.
People will say, it's that sense of entitlement for bushmen. People will say,
you are expressing your ignorance. There is a place called Shepherd's Bush.
Is the place.
And that's where he was.
But metaphorically, they were also in a bush.
Yeah.
So there was a real bush.
When I was in UK, leading the Uganda community there in London, I would write to President Museveni. This establishment of the structure at the local level was my idea. I discussed it with the external team led by then Masu Chikele. And the Museveni would read my letter. Our professor again in Uganda, he's talking to the soldiers in the bush, has written that we should do this and this. What do you think? They will discuss it. I don't know whether they adopted my ideas or they sold them, whatever. But the person who told me that Museveni used to read my letters to them in the bush is General Charlie Gonza.
Okay, our viewers, we're still with Professor PLO Lumumba and Professor Retired Justice George Wilson Kanyeihamba. Yeah, we indeed understand that there is a problem with the network. Please bear with us. It is kind of slow, but I can assure you we are good to go and we shall forever provide alternatives. Prof and Prof.
If note.
Yeah.
When Museveni and Kaira had a difference of opinion, and we saw it was not good for our liberation, the late chairman, Lule, Yusuf Lule, called them to Nairobi. They sent me a ticket to go and reconcile with them, the two of them. So there are so many things which people have not written. I flew there. We went into the bush with the late Kanyeihamba, Dr. Kanyeihamba, who was a friend of Lule. We reconciled them. And the question I asked both of them, because they both respected me, is, would you like to continue governing Uganda because you are quarreling, or should you agree to fight together, harmonize, and then the Ugandans will elect whom they want after? They shook hands on my recommendation. Tell that one to President Museveni, he will either say Kanyeihamba is telling a lie, and unfortunately, there is one, I hope he's still alive. The person who refused to come and join us was called Arnold Bisase. He was a politician, conservative politician. Though I went with Museveni, Kaira, Andrew Kaira, and Lule, and Kanyeihamba.
Okay, whoever is watching us out there on the Alternative Digi Talk, this is the Mighty Drive show, 7 to 9. We want to break for a few seconds. Please don't go away. We're coming back right now. Our studio lines, it's 0789 017 145. I repeat, you can call direct wherever you are. If you are outside Uganda, please use +256 789 017 145. If you're in Uganda, it is 0789 017 145. Ask Professor PLO Lumumba a question. Ask Professor Retired Justice George Wilson Kanyeihamba in our next hour. Guys, call, comment. We are going to read all your questions to these two professors. I am humbled to be amidst two PhD holders in law. Don't go away.
One thing, just call me Professor Kanyeihamba. Professors never retire.
Absolutely.
You're saying retire.
Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Have you read a book that makes you want to shout the title from a rooftop? If you haven't, then here is that book. The Evolution of Constitutional Law, Public Law and Government by retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. Renowned Kenyan jurist and panelist Professor PLO Lumumba and many other amazing speakers will grace the event. Do not miss the book launch on March 26, 2021, 2 p.m. at Imperial Real Hotel. The ticket comes with a book, all this at just 200,000 shillings. Call 0702 9000 76 or 0783 04 7785 to get the book or follow up on the launch. This event is organized by Alternative Digitalk in partnership with retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Digitalk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
We President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Digitalk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugendo maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop and smart TVs as we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Digitalk.
Have you read a book that makes you want to shout the title from a rooftop? If you haven't, then here is that book. The Evolution of Constitutional Law, Public Law and Government by retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. Renowned Kenyan jurist and panelist Professor PLO Lumumba and many other amazing speakers will grace the event. Do not miss the book launch on March 26th, 2021, 2 p.m. at Imperial Real Hotel. The ticket comes with a book. All this at just 200,000 shillings. Call 0702 9076 or 0783 04 7785 to get the book or follow up on the launch. This event is organized by Alternative Digitalk in partnership with retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Digitalk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
We President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Digitalk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugendo maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop and smart TVs as we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Dig Talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Today, 26th, shall forever be remembered that Tumuhimbise, on behalf of the Alternative Dig Talk and the Mighty Drive Show, hosted two professors of law. While we are way off record, Prof. Kanyeihamba said the greatest brains of East Africa are together. So I hope the world shares from your wisdom. And thank you all our viewers. I want to encourage you to call our studio line and number 0789017145. If you're outside Uganda, you can put +256 and add 789017145. We have some good means between now and when we are closing this show. Please call. Some of you haven't heard from these two professors, I mean by voice. Call 0779017145 and ask them. Ask those tough questions. Ask them, did he entrench? Did he not entrench the constitution? And again, I think let me go straight to you, Prof. I want to ask you, if it was a driver and they crashed on a road, for some reason, some of them would regret having learned how to drive vehicles. Do you have any regrets in particular for having studied law and also having been in courts?
Not at all. I hold the view that my engagement as a lawyer have been a learning process, and one continues to learn and to get enlightened by the day. And one of the things that we ought to do throughout our lives is to continue enriching our knowledge by constant reading and acquiring new knowledge, or even if it is new, not new knowledge, is different perspectives. I've just, since you sent me the book by Professor Kanyeihamba, I've been reading it, and some of the things I read as a law student, and yet there is a sense in which they keep on re-energizing my mind. And I have no regrets. I've had the occasion to practice law, to teach law, and to engage in to make law, to participate in constitutional reviews and other things. And I think the law is beautiful. And with the help of experience now, I hold the view that the law can be, and indeed is, a very useful tool in organizing society. And that particularly in the context of East Africa and Africa, I'm beginning to see new vistas in law. Look at the arena of technology. It is opening new areas of law. Look at the arena of trade, Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We are beginning to open boundaries. So the law is so alive that is amazing. Look at the medium that we are using today. Yeah, a few years ago, this was not a medium that was available to us. So the law is ever dynamic. The law is ever changing. And it is all to ensure that the quality of human life is improved. And that is my joy about the law. Tell me, which profession does not need the law? Medicine is anchored in the law. Agriculture is anchored in the law. And you must ask yourself why traditionally there were only two noble professions: the clergy and the lawyers. Engineering and law
I want to cut you short.
Came in later.
Yes, we have this urgent call. Let's hear from this person, and then yes, you can go ahead. Norman Tumuhimbise, I'm these two professors. Please ask your question.
Good morning, Mr. and the two professors.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Ariona Matthew. I'm calling from Agadi district. I would want to first thank you guys for the show. It is really an educative show, but I just have one question to ask professors in the house today.
Yes.
We've seen countries in Africa getting a peaceful transition of power, but in Uganda, up to now, it has refused and it has failed predominantly. So the question is, how how do these gentlemen think Uganda can get a peaceful transition of power without having any bloodshed or any war or any guns out? Because that is what we are seeing now.
Well, Matthew, they are going to get to you. I told you with the two professors, so yeah, definitely they will get back to you. Answer him. You have heard him.
Yeah, let me have a crack, and then the professor will have a final crack. I'm one who is very slow to judge countries. When you want to judge countries on the basis of your own short lifetime, you get it wrong. Countries must be judged across generations. And when you see problems bedeviling a country, those, in my view, are transient problems. And the reality is that every country will have its problems. And you've seen, even I look at the United States of America, which is the most vibrant in terms of being recognized as a democracy. When they said, for example, that in Philadelphia, we said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are born equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain alienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Did they mean all men? No. At that time, it only meant white men. And you see that there is a constitution, there is a declaration that speaks to equality. And until 1963, the African American cannot vote. That is the American Constitution, tested through a civil war, tested through the civil rights movement, and as recently as last year, and I dare say even now, tested through this white nationalism represented by Trumpism. That is the United States of America. Look at the United Kingdom. So Uganda, like any nation, will have these problems, and nobody wishes any country to have problems. But I want us to be positive. As I said a little earlier, democracy is about the vigilance of the population and the constant demand by the population that the leaders must recognize that they are servants of the people. And if you do that often enough, it will change. Look at Sudan. There was a man in Sudan called Omar al-Bashir. He thought he was larger than life, almost as large as death. Then within a space of 3 weeks, the people came into the streets. He's now in the ICC. There was a man called Hissène Habré in Chad. He suffered the same fate. There was a leader in Mali, suffered the same fate. There was the great Robert Gabriel Mugabe in Zimbabwe, went down, and a friend of mine called Nyarota has written a very nice book which is good to read, The Graceless Fall of Robert Mugabe. So in my view, don't paralyze yourself by worrying. Animate yourself by acting. And acting means make demands and make them so firmly and make them so clearly that it opens the eyes of those whom you think are engaged in wrongdoing. And if you do that consistently, you will have the peaceful transition.
You have something to add, Prof?
Yes, I have some very succinct only in relation to Uganda. Yeah. Change is coming. You see, if you believe in a principle, that principle succeeds. The majority of Ugandans, and Museveni knows it, and they know it, want change. Want change of leadership, change of direction. They want peace. They don't want a police force which tortures people, kills them, travels in unmarked vehicles. They don't. Ugandans don't want to be governed by corrupt systems. Uganda is corrupt. But 2021, Uganda will never be the same. Mark my words.
What do you mean, Prof?
What I mean, this is the last term of President Museveni. He has survived the court and
other,
survival and other handicaps. His main opponent withdrew the petition, which most of us think it was a mistake. But see what has happened in the country. In my own constituency, Rubanda, in the region of Kigezi, many of them have never heard of Kyagulanyi.
I want to cut you short, Prof. You answer to
So
these
let me say,
you answer to these people, and then you
over
proceed.
100 people in my constituency voted for Kyagulanyi when they don't know him. He lost Uganda, he lost Busoga, and the other areas. His own supporter and
First answer
fanatic.
First answer this person.
Let me finish here, please. So let us finish the point.
Let the point be made and then he can hold.
Don't allow people to interfere with it. We have another program in the future. Don't tell me, please. Otherwise, you shouldn't invite me here.
Yeah.
I was going to say, with the results in central Uganda and other areas, then his own supporters, people like Nagenda,
The presidential advisor.
yes, he said after this term, Museveni will go and graze his cattle in Gwastura. So why do Ugandans doubt anymore that it will continue? There will be change. I was a young man when apartheid was at its best. I never knew it could go. It has gone in my lifetime. It was the most powerful regime in Africa. It went. So why do people ask questions, will he go? What will he? Museveni, I guarantee this is his last time.
Professor Kanyeihamba says and guarantees that Mr. Museveni, the last term is most likely to be between now and 2026. Those are the words of Professor and retired Justice Kanyeihamba. Prof, before we went into the other question from our caller, I was talking about any regrets, and you said you do not have any regrets. Your critics, in particular, say to them it was a blunder to see the renowned jurist, Professor PLO Lumumba, putting on that wonderful black gown, appear in court to defend what they believed was a fraudulent electoral process by your client, the one and only, the president now of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, and you're there representing him. Your critics say you lost it.
You know, first of all, those critics are talking out of ignorance.
Yeah.
And that is the tragedy. Albert Einstein said, condemnation without investigation is the worst form of ignorance. My client was never Uhuru Kenyatta. My client was the chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission. And my brief was simple, to demonstrate to court that as the returning officer for presidential election, he never committed any electoral offense. The court found that he never did. So that is the problem of Africa, individuals who don't know what they are talking about. And you can only sympathize with them. And in any event, number two, they don't understand the role of a lawyer. A lawyer's role is to urge the brief as instructed by a client. That is why even when we have murder cases and the judge will tell you, you assign a lawyer to that individual under the proper brief. Three, I still hold the view that the decision of the Supreme Court by the majority, remember it was not a unanimous decision, the decision by the majority was wrong. Why? I hold the view that on the basis of the evidence adduced, there were flaws in the Constitution, but not sufficient in my view to warrant the annulment of the election. That is my view. And that is why when you read the dissenting opinion of Justice Ojwang and Joe Kindungu, they are the best. So I would urge people to read these words spoken by Roosevelt, particularly those who are in the business of criticism. That is not the critic who matters. The critics live between the twilight of victory and defeat, and that before you criticize, investigate. So when you get the primary issues wrong, then your criticism, as the English would have said, fall like Humpty Dumpty. I hope they have understood and that they'll investigate and that they'll read. I can tell you for a fact, many people, particularly in the social media, who are quick to criticize, they don't understand, they don't read what they are talking about. Some of us, when you see us coming out in the public domain and say something, you may agree or disagree with, but we have read. I'll give you a good example of something that is going on in Kenya called the Building Bridges Initiative, which is meant to amend the codes. Everybody is shooting from the hip. I asked them, have you read the document? I have not. I personally have given a 27-page item by item agenda why I oppose it. So when you see some of us coming out, we have read. So tell your critics, your friends who are in the business of criticism, before you criticize anything, investigate and get your facts right.
What's Professor PLO Lumumba? Critiques you have heard from him, he has no regrets for having represented his clients at the time. And I want to, now we're going back, let's go to the very petition, and he has so much interest. So you how is it with Kenyan judiciary when it comes to presidential petitions? Because Professor Kanyeihamba here continues to say in 2001, he came up with his findings. 2006, with his findings. And he has always been on record asking others that they shouldn't make it a ruling or a decision, but rather they should be findings of Supreme Court.
And before the professor says it, let me say, I can't agree with him more. The very reason why you make the Supreme Court the court of first and last instance is for them to be inquisitorial on the basis of the information that is given to them by the petitioners. They have a duty, an unusual and a unique duty, to inquire into the electoral process, to make demands of the Independent Electoral Commission, and to summon documents if necessary to demonstrate and investigate. What is a judgment? What is a ruling? And I think some of the countries which have the civil law system get it right. If you go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Gabon, they don't provide rulings. They conduct confirmatory hearings. And they make demands. So we get it completely wrong. And I can't agree more that judges in Kenya, in Uganda should style up. Don't come and tell us this is our judgment, this is our ruling. These are our findings in accordance with our investigation based on the petition and our own inquiry. As you say, suo motu inquiry if necessary. That is my view.
Is there enough time for Prof, Article 104 about the same?
Article 140 is specific. And as lawyers, we learn, teach in the first year, that where words are clear and ambiguous, you give them their natural meaning. So if I say you are a man, everybody knows what I mean. And you should be a man. I can't come later and say when you said a man, you meant a wife. You agree with me?
Yeah.
Now our constitution was clear, and we were 15 lawyers in the Constituent Assembly. We debated it at length. And as I have said before, the petitioner and his or her witnesses have the habit of exaggerating their rights. The government did this, the police beat us, several of us were killed. You have to be very careful with the evidence. The respondents want to show it was a clean and fair election. So they minimize the faults the Election Commission did and so. We debated this at length, both in the committee of 15 lawyers, for which I headed, and this year. So the words we chose to put in Article 104 were very, very carefully studied. So we said, when there is a petition presidential petition. The Supreme Court shall inquire.
Not here.
We never said here, try, or mediate. We said shall hear. Rather, shall inquire into the petition. And they give its findings. Please read it, Article 104, findings. When we finished the petition in 2006, I think it was just Secretary Kanyeihamba who talked about our findings in accordance with the Constitution. I want to ask the judges of Supreme Court since then, and some of my colleagues, where do you get the word judgment? The article does not speak about judgment. An inquiry is governed by different criteria, different rules. We even have the Act of the Inquiry Act. So I would like to ask everybody, including the current judges, where do you say we are waiting for our judgment? It's a misnomer, but it is intended to divert from the truth. What Professor has said is absolutely correct. You don't just sit there and wait for the petition to prove his case, or the respondents to disprove the case, and you sit there as you are not. You are a commissioner of inquiry, and each judge must give us their opinion. If you read our findings in 2006, and let me remind you who were the judges. Justice Mulenga, Justice Katulebe, Justice Kanyeihamba, we had been ministers of justice and attorney general, or we became. So it was not just a small bench. Odochi was a constitutional lawyer who compiled the report that we were debating in the Constitutional Commission inquiries. 6 years or 4 years. Then the others were justice who were the other two. They were also very experienced. You can't simply put people who are other judges, who we know have not a good report, and you say they decide a constitutional case. Where Chagulanyi made a mistake. I asked him, he came to see me here, he consults, but he takes his wrong advice. I said, have you asked Justice Odochi? He's retired, he can give you some advice. He's a constitutional lawyer. Have you asked Professor Sempebwa, Fred Sempebwa, before you went here? Get advice. He said no. And when he wanted to consult me, his lawyer said, Kanyeihamba is controversial, we don't want any his opinion. Cut the other one.
Yeah, you know.
It's ridiculous. So, what I have done, and it will cost maybe about 10,000 shillings, or not more than 20,000. I have written a book, a small booklet, and it is named Article 104 of the Uganda Constitution, exclamation mark. Then I said, challenging presidential election. I will first give it to all the judges free. I have some money to do it. Then I will ask lawyers to buy it. And I want in the future, anybody challenging presidential election, if you are a lawyer or those who are with him, don't have a copy of Kanyehamba's little booklet. Don't engage them.
Okay, I'm meeting two professors of law and retired justice.
That book will come presumably next month.
Good.
I have already finished drafting it.
And on my left is Professor PLO Lumumba, a renowned Kenyan jurist, but also a Pan-Africanist. I want to ask you, Prof, I think I should begin with him. How do you think there is enough time for African justices to make such an inquiry? especially, I don't know, let's draw lines between Kenyan constitution and Ugandan constitution?
I think Kenya is 14 days. And let me tell you, with the machinery that is available and is at disposal of the judges, it's possible. I believe that there is such a massive army of men and women and the research team. And at that time, invariably, when there is a presidential petition, every judicial staff is at the disposal of the judiciary. Every staff of the Electoral Commission is at the disposal. And in my view, the time is not necessarily the issue. There are those I see in Kenya, we have recommended that it be extended to 30 days. But the problem is the anxiety that it causes in the country. So you want to deal with these issues expeditiously. And I think that 14 days really is sufficient if you deploy the army that you have through these institutions.
Do you concur with your fellow Prof?
I concur.
The 14 days enough?
Nevertheless, we recommended our panel, and subsequently, the Supreme Court has recommended that the days should be increased. It's talking about 14, that is an increase of 4, not more than 20 presumably. But I entirely agree with the principles that he has propounded in his remarks. Now, I'm going to tell you that the judges are not foreigners from Mars. They've been in Uganda from day one when they were born. When the elections came, they were here. They have television, radios. They read what is happening. So why do you say we need more time? Haven't you been seeing it? When I was here, I'm a retired judge now, I saw Chabrani being tortured. It was on television. He slept in a car in one constituency. The police came with guns, wanting to shoot everybody who came to listen to him. Excuse me, if I was a judge, am I blind? Why do I need, I want an extension of time. I have been with it since day one when they were nominated. So all that, what the professor said, and I agree with you, is for competent lawyers to put it in writing what I saw, and then every Ugandan saw, including himself. See, this is what happened. Our client was tortured. Do you need witnesses who were there to give affidavits? That's where these lawyers of Chagulanyi went through. More affidavits, more affidavits. When I used to go to the Supreme Court, or to court, when I stopped being a judge, I practiced as senior counsel. If there was a constitutional matter, I only took my book of the constitutional law. You see other people carrying 100 books, authorities from America, authorities from South Africa, even authorities by rather decisions made by registrars. I said, what is all of this about? I will take my one book. Because the Constitution says it is the supreme law. Any other act or any other decision which is inconsistent with the Constitution is void. Why do you need other authorities? Take the Constitution.
Prof, if I may ask...
and I never lost the case.
By simply holding, carrying with you just a constitution, no 1,000 booklets as
No.
it is. Prof, let me begin, let me come back to you. Prof Kanyeihamba talks of justices playing tricks, like they haven't been following the sequence of events. Is that evidence enough that yes, we watched presidential candidates being harassed or otherwise, and for that case, that can lead to
I don't think that is what he's saying. Yeah.
You misunderstood me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the judge should say, yes, I saw him too.
Yeah.
The lawyers must reduce it
Absolutely.
into legal document. But when they say Chagulanyi, our client, was not allowed to go to Jinja because he was beaten up, you don't want 100 witnesses
To prove that.
to say you go there and I get affidavits from 100 witnesses, because you know now what they are saying is legal and it's correct, and in my mind as a Ugandan I saw it also happening. Yes. So they are not, it's not forged.
It is true. I mean, a judge lives in a society.
Yeah.
The duty of the lawyer is simply to, in an organized fashion,
Yes.
bring the evidence which the court will then use. But the judge is in that society. And that is the essence of him or he or she being in that society. And let me tell you, one of the most important things today, and as one grows older in the profession, when we are younger, you would go to court with a raft of authorities. I no longer do that. And I see during this period when we are hearing virtually, the courts are saying, I did a case last week where the Court of Appeal said, give us your submissions in not more than 3 pages.
Yeah.
In the early days, we would write submissions of 60 pages, thinking that the longer the submission, the more effective we were.
3 pages?
Concise, and they themselves upload their ruling in a single page. Because what you want is not an academic treatise. You want a decision on real issues that affect people's lives.
That's correct.
And in an African setting, when people were entering in making judgments, they were not even written. You would go to somebody, they listen to you, and after they have listened, they retire in some corner, and then they come and make a pronouncement. And that was no lesser justice than what we are doing now.
Prof Kanyeihamba, Nwamanya Patience asks here, Prof Wilson, the fact, as you say, Mr. Museveni is a liability, don't you think the party politics is the problem? Reason being, it has brought a lot of disunity, and a lot of disunity. I see genocide in the near future. Can't Ugandan government think of making collective actions for the good of the country and the common man without party politics is making people to eat each other? It's patience in one.
In the NRM today, there are people who think like me. Former, rather the current Minister for Foreign Affairs, Kutesa, says I'm not standing anymore. The Prime Minister of Uganda is not standing. When Honorable the Minister of Commerce, what's her name?
Honorable Amelia Chambadi.
Yeah. When she was defeated in the constituency, she gave words to the effect that people are tired of us. You remember that?
Yeah, it's on record.
Now, political parties are not living animalisms. They are run by the Musevenis, the Maos of Nobat, and the Chagulanis. So, when we are criticizing NRM, it's not, we are not criticizing it. The organization, its principles are great, but the people who are running it are the wrong people. And we could have a clean leadership of the NRM, composed of people who are really the kind of leader that Professor Lumumba has described. They could take over the NRM today. When NRM was not yet a party, it was an organization. I was proud to be a member of it. I gave it ideas because we regarded ourselves as servants of the people. But the NRM party, Museveni has said, its leader, I am not a servant to anybody. I do things for myself. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're reminding me.
Just one thing that is very important. I think that it's important to know that organizations really are innocent. If you look at the policy documents, as the good professor said, political parties, if you look at their manifestos and constitutive documents, they are beautiful. But as a young person, I had the honor and privilege of working as an intern with President Kambarage Nyerere. And this is what he told me, that when I wanted to retire, there was no shortage of people who were telling him, Mwalimu, you leave us as orphans. And he said, when the people insist that you should stay, that is when you should leave. And see how Nyerere is now almost deified. Some people want him to become a Catholic saint because he was there. And wisdom says that you are not successful until your successor succeeds. That is the test of the system that you have created. Nyerere is now one of the most successful post-independent politicians that Africa has ever produced, because after him we have had Mwinyi, we have had Mkapa, we have had Kikwete, we have had John Joseph Pombe Magufuli, and there is a sense in which you can now talk of Nyerereism. And I think that that is the kind of message that we are telling leaders, including the very brilliant Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, that we want him, if God grants him life, to see his successor succeeds. It is the message that some of us have been telling even Paul Kagame, that we want to see your successor succeeds when you are there. And they come to you, and we see occasionally they are visiting you, you have retired, and you are now telling, when I was there, I made this mistake, don't repeat it. And we want to see it on national television. Yeah, that is what we desire. And I think President Museveni calls Bazukuru. Bazukuru. I want to see, I would want to see the president see his Bazukuru, be the ones who are in charge. And he tells Bazukuru, you are making mistakes, never do that. It would be such a joy.
He tells us we lack ideological orientation.
He's the one who should give you the orientation.
The professors very brilliantly described. You see, success in leadership does not depend on length. You remember Kaunda having governed, and then an old man, he wanted to come back, and he said, I never finished my program. I don't like leaders who say, I still have something to do. Do the people agree with you that you still have a lot to do? But if you look at history, and they have, the greatest leaders who are remembered for achievements lived a very short time.
Correct.
Jesus Christ, where almost billions worship him and his principles. How many years was it?
Three only.
3 years. He lived 3 years. Mandela in Africa. One term. He's revered. Museveni 34 years.
Okay. Prof, I want to ask.
Point is made.
Prof, I want to ask from you, with your wisdom, do you think, and I think, let me begin with you, political parties, do you think Africans have understood the architect and the wisdom therein? Political parties.
Before he answers, you show you have no reading period. In my book, In the Name of God, Truth and Justice, there is a chapter which says the major problem in Uganda are political parties leaderships.
Yes.
The chapter. Please read it.
Okay.
Then you can ask the professor.
Yeah.
Unless you don't agree with
it. The question is a little unfair. Whenever you ask me a question whether Africans understand something, the underlying and asked question is that we have certain incapacities. That is not true. We don't. And I think the question is whether the manner in which we organize ourselves for political action, the political party is one of them. Somehow Western Europe persuaded us, particularly after the collapse of the Soviet Union, that democracy meant periodic elections, political parties. And I have no quarrel with political parties. I have no quarrel. If the nature of human beings is to organize themselves under some kind of body so that the ideas are articulated. The only problem with the manner in which we organize political parties in many parts of Africa, and Uganda is no exception, Kenya is no exception, is that these things are individualized so that it is, and the newspapers are guilty of this. You see, the Museveni's party, Kagame's party. That does not happen in South Africa, where you have a political party like ANC. You'll never hear them saying Ramaphosa's party. You'll never hear them in Tanzania saying Magufuli's party. It is CCM. You'll never hear saying Lorenco's party, MPLA. You'll never hear them saying that about Frelimo or SWAPO. It is the duty of those who preside over the political parties to make it a body that thrives and has the power to recall. Remember, ANC called Thabo Mbeki and caused him to be removed from power. They called Jacob Zuma and caused him to be removed from power. They could call Nelson Mandela to order. Can NRA, NRM do that here? No. It's incapable because the structures are so weak that the president is the party. There is a French king called King Louis XIV. When he was asked, what is the state? He said, l'État, c'est moi. I am the state. You are looking for other things. I am the state. And many party leaders in Africa confuse themselves. If you ask them, what is the state? Say, I am the state. And when a leader reaches such a position, he becomes a danger to his country. And the country can only be saved when such a leader is off the stage. So the political parties are innocent. It is the leadership that is guilty.
Prof, I want, following on that very important point, fear. There is nothing as dangerous to a country as political fear. I want to give you an example. I know a police commissioner who comes from my region together. He visited me here once. And I told him, do you know that President Museveni is a Mnyakigezi, he comes from Kabaj? He was saying, no, it can never be true. Museveni, we know him, he's a Mnyankole. He always says he's a Mnyankole. There is a book here, I can show it to you, which has been introduced by Museveni. And they say, Museveni, the famous Mnyakigezi, he grew up not very far from where I am, in Kawari. He's a member of the Wanyakigezi Association. But the policeman said, I can never.
That is fear.
Fear. But if you don't call Museveni a Mnyankole, you are finished.
Okay, Prof, let us you're talking about fear.
Yes.
And for so many times when we have interacted with you off record, you have talked about some ministers who fear him.
Yes.
Have you, at a certain point, looked straight into the eyes of your former boss, Mr. Museveni, and said, Mr. President, this is wrong?
I want you to ask Mama Ambabazi, Wakana Uganda, Shanta did, at one time she was his personal sister, a brother, and asked, has Kanyeihamba ever pleaded with you that he wants to see his former boss and the President of Uganda, His Excellency, including the Minister of Education? I have pleaded with them. I want to see my president. He will never see me. Because as people fear him, it seems he's not happy. My intellectual honesty and my courage to speak it as it is threatens Museveni. So he will never see me alone. But I'm hoping after this program, let us challenge him. That you heard what Kanyeihamba say. Please call him
And meet him
in your office, and he comes and you have a chat. Give me a cup of tea.
What is that you tell him to meet one-on-one now? Because he has been avoiding you for so long.
There is one word I will tell you. Please, resign in this administration and tell the people I am not going to stand again, find my successor, and they will be worshipped like Nyerere and Mandela.
Let me tell you, there is, I must make a confession. On 2 occasions I had requested to see President Museveni. And on 2 occasions he granted me audience. One at Entebbe, and we sat alone. And secondly in Nairobi at the UNCTAD meeting, and he granted me audience at the Safari Park Hotel. And we discussed many things. I mean, he's one of the most intellectually engaging individuals. Amazing, amazing on diverse issues. And one of the things that I remember telling President Museveni is about longevity in power, and the fact that I myself wanted him to be more active in East Africa. And to his credit, he asked me to write a paper, 2-page paper, on what I thought he could do when he ceased to be the president of Uganda. And I said, get into East Africa. You are the elder statesman, nobody is going to challenge you. Found the Museveni, the Yoweri Kaguta Museveni Foundation, be a person who propagates the Pan-Africanism. I'm waiting for the response to that paper, which he received 2 years ago. And I think that that is what we must do consistently. Yes. Because the other problem that happens is that when you've been in power for too long, then there is no shortage of people who are telling you, don't leave us, we are orphans. and those individuals are the ones who really are shielding you from the truth as you need to know. There is an American president who once said, not in a similar context, but I'll use his words, that at critical moments in the history of a country, the only thing that we must fear is fear itself. Yes. Because fear is paralyzing. And when you are paralyzed by fear, you become paranoid. And when you become paranoid, you see enemies where they don't exist.
Even your shadow.
Even your shadow can become your enemy. And I think that what Professor has said, and I pray, and I've said it publicly, if President Museveni were to choose to retire even mid of this particular term, and say, I now want to preside, let me tell you, he would be in the class of Nyerere.
Yes. If I was to use a yardstick by age and experience, I would begin by you to give your closing remarks.
Never like that. It is the elder who gives the final remarks.
But you're a visitor here.
No.
Okay, your closing remarks, and then go back to the elder.
It's the elder that must have the final word.
They called me as guest of honor at a function, to which they called Justice Katulebe, who was Chief Justice, and he came. When he came, for me, when I came, they showed me a chair. They didn't do anything, they didn't stand. When Katulebe came, the minister, they all stood up for him. He was very embarrassed. He said, when my boss is already here, meaning me, you don't stand up, sit down.
Yes.
Then, when I told him, for me they didn't even stand. He said, really? So then he sat in the audience. And then people don't know that the Minister of Justice and that he was then,
it's bigger than,
he's smaller than a judge of the Supreme Court. You don't know.
I am against 2 PhD holders, and you need to guide me onto this.
But where you are right and the way I agree with you, it is my guess.
Okay. Now you can see. Now you see is the one who has ceded the territory. Then it is acceptable.
Okay. Give your closing remarks. I go to certain call and gives. Okay. I've missed that call. Give your closing remarks, sir, and also invite people to come for your book launch day at 2, where he's going to be the keynote speaker. Gentlemen, ladies, citizens, and comrades at 2 p.m. at Pink Imperial Riyadh Hotel. Do not miss him. Okay, also me. Give your closing remarks and go back
this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
I'm surrendering him to have the last word this afternoon. But for me, let him today speak first, and I'll give the last word.
There you are.
Let me say how glad I am to be present, as I said at the very beginning, under the feet of a great man. Paul of Tarsus is on record as saying that he learned under the feet of Gamaliel. When we were students, we were reading books written by him, and there is a sense in which this is very re-energizing, that he continues to be one of the most, in fact, the most prolific in the area of constitutional law in Africa today. The only people who come close would possibly be Nwabweze in Nigeria, but even those don't come close. And when you are in the presence of those, particularly young Africans, we must read and understand men and women who have demonstrated by what and did that they have a message. And Professor George Kanyeihamba stands tall. And if I had power, you know, people are in the business of naming things for people. There would be something great at Makerere University that is established in his honor, even if it is a professorial chair. These are the kind of things that are done to immortalize people who have contributed immensely. Unfortunately, in Africa, we don't do this, but I think that we must petition so that you have Professor George Kanyeihamba, Professor of Constitutional Law at the University at Makerere or Dar es Salaam. And I hope that that will happen in his lifetime and in our lifetime. Thank you very much for you hosting this very good breakfast. I hope that you will rename this particular breakfast, you say, the GWK breakfast.
Please prepare to wind up this afternoon when we launch my publication. You didn't know me before, but you are an intellectual, thinker and academic. When you wrote your book, you sent me a copy. But I hadn't met you.
Yes.
And I enjoyed reading your intellectual input. This is one of the greatest eloquent speakers East Africa has ever produced. We have produced many. There is even the man you talked to invited me to Kenya to lead the team of Commonwealth judges and lawyers. And we made recommendations. That's the difference between Kenya and Uganda. We made recommendations for improving the judiciary in Kenya. And they incorporated almost in total our recommendations. That is great. I went to inquire into the dispute between the King of Swaziland, his government, and the Parliament. Our report was published in 1 week. I was leading a team of international jurists, commission of jurists, and they accompanied me with armed police to the airport to leave because I was in danger of being ambushed by the Prime Minister and the Deputy, and the Attorney General, who hated my report because we named them as the main problem. The king did not sack them there. We said they should be sacked. My team, when we were still there. Then, 2 years he held on, the king. Britain said, we are not going to give you any more aid unless you implement the Kanyeihamba report. America said, we are going to withdraw our developmental aid unless you implement the Kanyeihamba report. 2 years, he sacked the Prime Minister and the Attorney General. His brother became the Attorney General, David, Prince David. And he came here, was a judge of Supreme Court here. He came all the way from Swaziland to thank me. They wanted me to say, when you retire, please, become our Chief Justice for a brief while. But that's a different story. Somebody didn't like that. So what I am saying, my last word,
Yes, please.
we cannot do better as Uganda than adopt not even a new constitution. Please, my last words, let's go back to the 1995 constitution in total. President Museveni, other world leaders said it was the best constitution Uganda ever made. Let's go back to it.
I can't add a word, just to say, at 2 p.m. Imperial Royal Hotel, we have two professors already, and some other professors in the hall. We shall be streaming live on Professor PLO Lumumba's page, Facebook page. We'll be streaming live on the Alternative Uganda Facebook page, Alternative Uganda YouTube channel. We'll be there, I can assure you. It is at 2. We'll have a panel that has Right Honorable Amma Mbabazi, Council Nicholas Opio, Dr. Ina Zedriga, Bernard Mona from Ghana. We have Chairman Mao of DP, but also the guest speaker is Professor PLO Lumumba here, and the guest of honor is the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Jacob Olanya. Please, let's catch you up at 2 p.m. Be there. May God bless one, bless all. My name is Norman Tumuhimbise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Have you read a book that makes you want to shout the title from a rooftop? If you haven't, then here is that book. The Evolution of Constitutional Law, Public Law and Government by retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba. Renowned Kenyan jurist and panelist Professor PLO Lumumba and many other amazing speakers will grace the event. Do not miss the book launch on March 26, 2021, 2 p.m. at Imperial Royal Hotel. The ticket comes with a book, all this at just 200,000 shillings. Call 0702 9000 76 or 0783 04 7785 to get the book or follow up on the launch. This event is organized by Alternative Digitalk in partnership with retired Justice Professor George Wilson Kanyeihamba.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.